Can you share with us the current status of dollar dominance as it stands today and whether there are risks are to the strength of the U.S. dollar in the international financial system? And if so, what are some of the risks?
So the U.S. dollar is still the dominant reserve currency in the world, and that is principally thought to be as a result of our liquid capital markets, the rule of law, strong democratic institutions, price stability over the years, critically open. Money can come in and out of the United States without all sorts of legal restrictions and things like. All of those things are necessary to provide the world's reserve currency. We have them. There's not another economy that does have all of those features. So as long as we are a country of rule of law and relative price stability and strong democratic institutions and open capital accounts, we can continue to be the world's reserve currency. History shows that this is not a permanent status, but it is a lasting one. And I think in the case of the United States, as long as we maintain those characteristics of our government and our country, then we can continue to be the world's reserve currency.
Hey, everybody. It's Eddie from Tokyo. This is your cryptocurrency update from Japan, and that was the Fed Chair Jerome Powell testifying before the House Committee yesterday. The subject of the dollar dominance continues to interest me. What you're looking at is the top 100 by market cap, and you can see that most of the projects are leaning towards the green with Bitcoin hanging in above 30,000. Leo, VeChain, Chainlink, Bitcoin Cash, Polkadot, and Zilliqa are leading the pack in terms of 24-hour gains. In this video, I want to shed a bit more light on the Ripple in-principle regulatory approval in Singapore announcement and also touch on the Hinman China connection. There's probably the strongest connection that nobody seems to remember. And the use of XRP as a bridge currency is quite strong in the Asia-Pacific region. And the senior VP at Ripple, who has that region under his watch, is, I'm noticing, spending a lot of time with the payment participants in Africa. We're going to take a look at where he was in the last 24 hours. And finally, a David Schwartz podcast from October. It's making the rounds again, and there's one portion that really caught my attention I'm going to share with you. Come on, everybody, let's go. There was a lot of hype in the last 24 hours with the in-principle regulatory approval for Ripple in Singapore. This is slated to give Ripple the ability to offer a digital payment token product and service. With a little bit of research, only 14 in-principle approval licenses have been issued in the last 2 years, with the Monetary Authority of Singapore receiving 196 applications. This is according to the Straits Times, which is the #1 media in the former British colony that became independent in 1965. Yeah, I love Singapore. It's so diverse. There are 4 official languages: Chinese, Malay, Tamil, and English. And it's really a small country with a lot of smiles. It was back in November 2022 when Circle earned its in-principle regulatory approval in Singapore. And it was today that I learned Circle actually obtained their major payment institution license, the MPI, on the 7th of June. Circle is the big partner to Stellar, and I have no doubt that they are going to be very active with this license. Along with Ripple, in the in-principle approval that's coming is the SBI darling Signum Bank, Ping Pong Payments, Crypto.com, Genesis, among some others. Moving right along, there's a lot of conversation on Twitter that is making connections of the Chinese entities with William Hinman. I want to just remind everyone there is a fact that's not speculative at all. I know Attorney John Deaton hasn't forgotten because I hear him mention it, but in all the conversation I'm listening to and reading on Twitter, it seems like everyone forgot about Canaan. Remember, they introduced a new Ethereum ASICs miner in 2019. This is the same time Hinman was at the SEC and was receiving millions from the law firm Simpson Thacher. And it was Simpson Thacher who led the Canaan IPO in 2019. Ripple's Brooke Entwistle was in Kigali and on a panel with the Binance head of Africa, the managing director of Fireblocks in the APAC region, and the Asia CEO of Paxos. The chief fintech officer of the Monetary Authority of Singapore led the roundtable, and it was titled, "Is this a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to leapfrog traditional finance?" So these frogs have reached the other side of the pond. What has happened to you, Gary Gensler? I'm going to let David, the CTO of Ripple, take you out with entrepreneur Sid John Leopold. They're having a conversation about XRP and money. And surely you're going to be surprised when you hear that the ledger was not always as fast as it is today. This is just a small portion of a very good podcast, which I'll put a link to in the description below. Until next time, do take care. Sayonara for now. Bye-bye.
The way I see cryptocurrencies is just like these ongoing innovations of money, because money is continuously being better and better. And we had this, when it comes to the internet, it was really interesting because everyone thought about that money should be built into the backbone of internet. But the problem why that didn't happen is that the innovations were lagging in the money department when internet came around. So I'm very glad right now that we are in a state where we both have a global internet and we have a money system that can so to say work as the same way as information flows today.
So is that kind of the future? I go to buy something and I send some money, and then within a very small amount of time, that money goes to various different organizations or goes to buy goods, or just like my order sends instructions and money at the same time?
The way I see the future is a future where like everything is much connected, everything goes much faster, and because of money can travel faster, the economy is going to scale and it's going to be much, much bigger. And this is something that's good for everyone. And you're touching the notion of programming money. And that is something that I think is going to be very big as well.
You know, it's kind of funny thinking about this, because just 8 years ago in 2012, when I was working on the XRP ledger, Bitcoin had established that it could settle in between 10 minutes and 60 minutes. And we thought, wow, it might as well be instant. Like that's as fast as, because we were comparing it to systems that took many days. And in early versions of the XRP ledger design, in one version, it took 30 minutes to settle. And we really didn't see at the time any benefit to making it faster. We just made it faster because we could. It's kind of amusing to think now that, you know, is there a benefit to going to sub-second? Like, do the benefits keep accruing?
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought. It's like trying to be a little bit of the genie in the bottle and understand like how is the future going to behave before the future is here. But like looking backward and trying to understand how the future is going to behave, I think there's going to be benefits to making things faster and faster. I don't really see where the end is going to be. Is it like sub 1 second or sub milliseconds? I don't know where the stop is, but I think we can go faster. Probably like seconds is like where benefits fall off or something. I'm not sure. I'm gonna eat that up in the future, I'm sure. Like I really didn't foresee like how it's gonna work, but like speed is key.
The big thing that we discovered is that when a human being makes a payment, they feel uncomfortable while their money is sort of missing. And until they get that confirmation that the money went to the destination, they feel like unease. And if that unease is 5 or 7 seconds, that's just like before you even realize that you're in a sort of state. But of course, that's dealing with humans. Dealing with machines, you know, obviously more efficient operations could take place at much, much smaller timeframes.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting thought of you, because like when it comes to the psychology of money, I mean, how you behave and how you think of it is as crucial as the actual technology behind it. So if you are not at ease with the money you use, or you're not at ease before they have settled, maybe you're not doing a second payment for something else because you want to wait and see that everything worked. And here I see huge efficiencies being created.
When it comes to the psychological factors of money, and perhaps in a world where people can choose the money that they want to use, how important is things like trust and transparency, both in the economic base itself and in the means of transfer?
Yeah, okay. So when it comes to trust, we usually talk about the trustless part of cryptocurrencies. And for me, that is the trustless part is what's make cryptocurrencies money 2.0. For me to not be where you don't have to use a third party to deciding on what's good or evil, this is something that on scale benefits us all. It was one of the missing part to why money wasn't built into the internet from start, I think. And I see like the trustless part, there are only two bad things. A, it's harder to understand than using a third party, and therefore can lag the adoption of it. And B, it's less efficient. And that's why it's so interesting discussing and exploring other ways forward than proof of work. So one thing I think is often overlooked when it comes to cryptocurrencies, when you compare XRP to the most of the other ones, for example, Bitcoin, is the certainty level of it, because a transaction is certain on the ledger on XRP, while when it comes to Bitcoin, is a level of certainty. So what level of certainty am I comfortable with going forward? And that's a problem. That's a problem at making the speed problem even bigger, because like on average you have a block every 10 minutes, but is one block height enough for me, or is it 5 blocks, 6 blocks? How should I determine this? And that depends on the hash rate of the current hash rate of the blockchain. That also varies over time. So it becomes like you need to be this mad scientist to like determine if has this transaction gone through yet, because it's not yes or no, it's just a level of certainty. But if you look at the XRP ledger working as is, like every 4th or 5th second you have certainty on this on both sides, and it doesn't matter if you view the transaction in different ways, the certainty is there. It's like a binary, yes, it closed it. You can bash it, David. If you think I'm in the wrong here, let me know.
No, I do think an important difference in the XRP ledger is behavior. And this wasn't so much by design. This was sort of things that we got by accident as properties of the difference in the technology. When we started to use like some sort of a Byzantine agreement algorithm instead of proof of work, we didn't know what properties that would give us. We didn't know if it would work. And when we built it, we noticed that it had these properties. And another interesting one that's closely related to what you mentioned is that the equivalent of the block rate, the ledger rate, is more predictable. It's much less variable. And that and we got that by accident. We didn't design it to have a more predictable block rate. It just so happens that that's a characteristic of the algorithm. And another characteristic of the algorithm is that you get a much higher level of for all practical purposes. Absolutely, I'm never going to call something 100%, but like 99. For all practical purposes, absolute certainty, very, very quickly. These are not properties that we designed into the system. They're properties that emerged from the algorithms, and we didn't know that they would be important. Nobody in 2012, like unless you're this incredible, genius at some level, that nobody knew how important those properties would be. Like I said before, we thought 30 minutes was great. Like when you're compared, because we were thinking of things like wire transfers and international pay and like going to Western Union. That's what we were comparing it to. And we kind of lucked out in a lot of these things, that the technology produced these properties that were not only interesting, but also useful and turned out to be important.
Yeah, so one of the things I think is really interesting when it comes to cryptocurrency is like how people got started. And you can correct me, David, if I'm wrong here, but from my memory, I read that you started like thinking about this and starting to think about the XRP ledger because your account at PayPal were closed down, and you weren't given a fair reason to why and how you should fix that problem. So you had to create a better system. So I think this is very interesting because like when you look at cryptocurrencies today, like everyone has these kind of stories. And I remember getting into cryptocurrencies from a slightly different angle. I was a semi-pro in Counter-Strike, and I got a lot of gifts in the game that were skins for like the guns you used in the game, basically. And they had some value, but I didn't know what the value was, and they were only denominated in Bitcoin. And I was like, what is Bitcoin, and is that worth anything? So I sold all my skins when I gave up this pipe dream of becoming a pro in Counter-Strike. I was too old, too slow, so I sold these skins, got some Bitcoins, never tell how many Bitcoins you have or that you even have Bitcoins. So breaking that rule now. But I sold the skins, I got some Bitcoins, and that's how I got started with cryptocurrencies, because I had to learn. What is this? How does it work? Etc. And then just going further with this, I found out about the XRP, and now I'm here.
So if you'd found out about it earlier, you could have been a pro gamer.
I could. But I was too slow,
Yeah, I love that.